The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the usual suburban quiet of Maple Ridge Estates at dawn, but a heavy, unnatural stillness. No birds. No distant hum of lawnmowers. Just the low creak of my bed as I sat up. I rubbed my eyes and walked to the bedroom window. What I saw made my stomach drop. A raw, 8-foot-deep trench encircled my entire house like a moat. The earth was freshly dug, roots dangling from the edges, dark soil piled in neat mounds on the outer side. My property looked like an island cut off from the rest of the neighborhood. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the morning breeze, and orange cones stood at intervals like silent sentries. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday in late October. My name is Elias Grant. I'm a 42-year-old systems engineer who moved to Maple Ridge 3 years ago for the good schools and quiet streets. I live alone. I like it that way. After my divorce, I wanted control over my space. That need for control is exactly why I installed the hidden cameras 2 years ago. 6 of them weatherproof, high-resolution, motion-activated with night vision and cloud backup. They cover every angle of the exterior. HOA never knew about them. I never told them. I pulled on a hoodie and stepped outside. The cool air smelled of wet dirt and cut grass. My shoes sank slightly into the soft ground near the foundation. The trench was precise, perfectly parallel to the property line, about 4 feet out from the foundation. Severed my driveway completely. The mailbox lay on its side, still attached to its post but now on the wrong side of the gap. I called the HOA office immediately. It went to voicemail. I left a message, my voice tighter than I intended. By 8:30 a.m., neighbors began gathering at the edge of the trench, staring like it was some strange art installation. Mrs. Delgado from across the street waved, her face concerned. "Elias, what on earth happened?" Shrugged. "That's what I'm trying to find out." At 9:15 a.m., a white golf cart rolled up carrying 2 HOA board members. Karen Whitlock, the president, and her deputy Michael Torres. Karen was in her mid-50s, always perfectly dressed, with a kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Michael was younger, quiet, and carried a clipboard like it was a shield. "Mr. Grant," Karen said, stepping carefully around the trench. "We're so sorry for the inconvenience. There was an emergency water main repair scheduled. The crew must have misinterpreted the property boundaries." I stared at her. An emergency that requires digging a complete circle around one house? Michael cleared his throat. The contractor was new. Miscommunication. "We'll have it filled back in by tomorrow evening." I nodded slowly. "I'd like to see the work order." Karen's smile tightened. "We'll email it over this afternoon." They left shortly after. I watched their golf cart disappear down the street. That's when I remembered the cameras. I went inside, locked the door, and opened my laptop. The security software loaded. 6 feeds. I started with the one mounted in the old oak tree near the front yard, angled down to catch the driveway and front porch. I rewound to 2:30 a.m. The footage was clear, almost too clear. At 2:47 a.m., a white utility van with no markings pulled up. 3 men in dark work clothes and reflective vests got out. They moved with purpose. No orange cones yet. No caution tape. One man carried a professional-grade surveying laser. Another consulted a tablet. They didn't look like typical city workers. Their movements were coordinated, efficient. Within minutes, they had set up barriers and began marking the ground with spray paint. The digging started at 3:12 a.m. using a small excavator that appeared from a second truck. The machine's engine was oddly muffled. I switched to the side yard camera. Same scene. Precise, professional work. At one point, one of the men looked directly toward the hidden camera in the tree, but he didn't react. He couldn't see it, camouflaged perfectly among the branches. I fast-forwarded. At 4:55 a.m., the men packed up. One of them placed the yellow caution tape and cones. The last thing I saw before they drove off was Karen Whitlock's golf cart pulling up. She spoke briefly with the crew leader, handed him an envelope, and then left. My hands were cold on the keyboard. I spent the next several hours reviewing every angle. The footage was undeniable. This wasn't a mistaken water main repair. The trench followed my property line exactly. No other house on the street had been touched. They had isolated me, made calls. The City Public Works Department had no record of any emergency work order for Maple Ridge Estates that night. The utility company confirmed the same. No leaks, no scheduled maintenance. By late afternoon, I had compiled a timeline and saved multiple clips. Karen emailed the promised work order at 4:42 p.m. It was clearly forged. Wrong permit number, incorrect contractor license, and a signature that looked nothing like the one on file from previous HOA documents I had kept. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses, I stood at my back door looking at the trench. The depth was intimidating. Jumping across it would be risky. My car was trapped on the other side. I was effectively imprisoned in my own home. I sent an email to the entire HOA board with selected time-stamped screenshots from the cameras, faces blurred for legal reasons, but the actions unmistakable. I requested an emergency meeting and full explanation, copying my attorney. The response came at 9:17 p.m. from Karen. Mr. Grant, we are investigating this internal matter. Please do not escalate unnecessarily. The repair will be completed tomorrow. I replied with one line. I have video. The next morning the trench was still there. No crew arrived. At 10 a.m. my phone rang. It was Michael Torres. His voice was lower than usual. Elias, can we talk off the record? I agreed to meet him at the edge of the trench. He arrived alone, looking nervous. We spoke across the gap like prisoners in adjacent cells. Look, he said, glancing around. This wasn't supposed to happen. Karen, she's been under pressure. The board has been trying to push through a major landscaping renovation for the entire community. Your property sits on the highest point. They wanted to run new fiber optic lines and drainage for a community smart system. But you refused the easement last year. I remembered that meeting. I had been the only homeowner to vote no. So they decided to dig anyway. Yes. Michael looked uncomfortable. Karen thought if they isolated the house, you'd be forced to negotiate. She didn't know about your cameras. None of us did. I stared at him. This is illegal, Michael. You know that. He nodded. I'm resigning from the board. I'll give a statement if needed. Just be careful. Karen doesn't like losing. That afternoon, two things happened almost simultaneously. First, a large truck with proper city markings arrived with a crew ready to fill the trench. They worked quickly and professionally. Second, I received a certified letter from the HOA's attorney demanding I delete all footage and sign a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for waiving any claims. I refused. Over the following week, the story stayed contained within Maple Ridge, but tensions rose. Neighbors took sides. Some supported me quietly. Others worried about property values. I shared the unblurred footage only with my attorney and local authorities. The investigation moved slowly, but it moved. A county inspector confirmed the trench had been dug without permits. The forged documents were traced back to Karen's home printer. 3 weeks after that strange morning, Karen Whitlock resigned as HOA president. In her farewell email, she cited personal reasons. Michael Torres took over temporarily and helped push through reforms requiring better transparency on any work orders. I stood at my window the morning the last of the dirt was smoothed over and new sod laid. The lawn looked almost untouched, except for a faint scar where the trench had been. A scar that would fade with time. But I kept the footage, backed up in 3 different secure locations. Some nights, when the house is too quiet, I still watch the time-stamped video from 2:47 a.m., the white van arriving, the precise movements, the careful isolation of my home. It reminds me that control is an illusion until you build your own safeguards. I never confronted Karen directly. There was no need. The cameras had already spoken. Life in Maple Ridge returned to normal on the surface. Lawns were mowed. Kids rode bikes. But I noticed something different now. When board members passed my house, they looked away. When neighbors waved, there was a new respect in their eyes. I had woken up to a trench around my house. And thanks to cameras the HOA never knew existed, I had turned their mistake into my proof. The scar on the lawn eventually disappeared completely. But the memory of that deep circle in the earth, and what it revealed about the people who lived around me, remained. I still live here. Still alone. Still watching. Just a little more carefully now.